Oklahoma could win the SEC this year, and it's not insane to believe this when you look at everything that the Sooners are bringing into this season. You got John Mateer, who has the potential to be a Heisman finalist. He scored more touchdowns by himself last year than what Oklahoma had as a team. And with Oklahoma going up against some of the better quarterbacks in the SEC this year, such as Arch Manning, Lenore Sellers, and Garrett Nussmeier, they're going to need John Mateer to play at a Heisman level, which I definitely believe that he's capable of. Not only is he a really efficient passer, but he also is a really good runner. He had 15 rushing touchdowns last season, and he had more total yards of offense than what Oklahoma had by themselves as a complete team. So that shows you how talented this guy truly is. And Washington State has been a gold mine for quarterbacks over the last couple of years. Cam Ward balled out at Miami. There also was another quarterback that they had that's playing good football at San Jose State. And with John Mateer following his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, from Pullman down to Norman, that's also going to make the adjustment and the level of competition that he's going to be playing a lot easier because he's playing in the same system. And with him having Deion Burks and Jayden Gibson to throw the football to, that's also going to help him as well. Oklahoma has a really good wide receiver room. Deion Burks was an absolute stud at Purdue, and last year injuries held him back. I feel this year we finally are going to get to see a breakout season out of him. He's really good after the catch, has really good hands. Jayden Gibson, he's a potential breakout candidate at receiver for the Sooners as well. He's going to replace the role that Nick Anderson had. That's that big play deep threat that's going to take the top off the defense. Has similar size to what Nick Anderson had, 6'5", 197 pounds. And he was averaging 26 yards per catch last year with only 14 receptions. And yet he had 5 touchdowns and 375 receiving yards. So imagine what he can do getting more volume, having a better quarterback to throw him the football as well. I could see him going for well over 1,000 yards this year and being one of the better receivers in the SEC this season. Now, the biggest concern for Oklahoma's offense is their offensive line because they got Jayden Gibson out of the transfer portal. And it's one thing to have a talented running back, but it's another thing if you don't have a good offensive line to open up those running lanes for him. So Jayden Gibson can only be as good as what this offensive line is going to allow him to be. And if this offensive line steps up and they play at least a serviceable level, that'll be good enough for Jayden Gibson to take off this year because he was dominating that Cal, and going to Oklahoma where he should have much better blocking for him, he also, like John Mateer, has potential to be a possible Heisman finalist. They have 2 Heisman caliber players in the backfield. But Jayden Gibson's success is largely going to stem on if this offensive line can take a big step up. And I believe that it will because they've been working on this offensive line for the past 2-3 seasons. So eventually, when you throw shit at the wall, eventually it sticks. And that's what has to happen with this offensive line for Oklahoma. But even if the offensive line still has its fair share of struggles, with John Mateer's mobility, he can make up for that. Because you also can utilize him on design quarterback runs, and he also can scramble outside the pocket, extend plays, and pick up yards with his legs as well, which could open things up for Jayden Gibson also because the defense will focus so much on keying in on John Mateer that you leave holes open for Jayden Gibson. So with the talent and horsepower Oklahoma's bringing in on offense, they're good enough to win the SEC because we know that the defense is going to be up to par. One thing that we never have to question is a Brent Venables coach defense. And last year, their defense could have been a lot better than what it was if they didn't have the offense going 3 and out turnover pretty much every single possession. So with the offense being way more efficient, Oklahoma could have a top 15, top 10-ish or better defense this year. And if you couple an elite defense with good offense, it's a recipe for winning the SEC because they're going up against some of the more high-powered offenses in this conference this year. You got to play Texas, LSU, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Alabama. And Oklahoma's defense showed up when they went against those teams last year outside of Texas because, that was just an absolute massacre. But against Tennessee, their defense played really well. Their defense pretty much carried them in that win against Alabama. So if they can get some more competent offense, which they definitely should, if not then some, then this defense possibly could be the best in all of college football. They got a really good defensive line. They're really good getting after the quarterback last year, and they got a really talented secondary. Like, their secondary is one of the most talented in the SEC this year based off a bunch of those guys that they're going to have starting that they recruited. So Oklahoma winning the SEC this year is not a pipe dream. It can actually happen. They can beat Texas. It's a rivalry game. You can never just assume that one team's going to win a rivalry game just because they have the better roster, because rivalry games aren't necessarily always determined by who has the better team, as what we saw from Ohio State, Michigan last year. Ohio State was a 3-point or 3-touchdown favorite against Michigan last year, and Michigan beat them. And they beat them to a pulp. They pounded them to oblivion. So if the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry doesn't show you anything, it's a perfect indicator that this Oklahoma-Texas rivalry could go in Oklahoma's favor just because of rivalry games having a different feel from the rest of the other games that you play in your schedule, because you see this team every year. They know you better than anybody else that you play. They know your tendencies. They know what you like to do. So that's why I feel Oklahoma has a good chance to upset Texas this year. And if they can beat Texas, then there's not a single other team that they don't have the ability to beat on their schedule this year, because Texas, to me, is the most complete team in college football. They don't really have too many weaknesses, if any at all. So if Oklahoma can beat them, they can beat Alabama. They can beat LSU. It doesn't matter if it's on the road, at home, in the parking lot, in the backyard, wherever. Just line it up, and Oklahoma can get right with you. And Oklahoma has recruited pretty well. They've brought in a few top 10 recruiting classes under Brent Venables. There was somebody in my last Oklahoma video trying to tell me that Oklahoma is starting to go a little bit broke. Man, that's BS, man. Everybody they've been snagging out of the transfer portal, you don't pay a guy like Jayden and John Mateer and some of the other guys that they brought in out of the transfer portal if you was going broke. Like, stop the nonsense. Oklahoma can win the SEC this year if all of these things happen. If you get Heisman-level quarterback play from John Mateer, if you can get Deion Burks and Jayden Gibson going off, which definitely can happen with them having improved quarterback play, the offensive line finally takes a step up, and the defense is going to play at an elite level, and it can be a lot better than what it was last year due to them now having an offense that's not going to give them just a 30-second breather. Oklahoma is a lot better than what you think. This is a team that is good enough to win this conference. Do not overlook this team. They got the quarterback play. They got the offensive coordinator right. This is a team that I would not sleep on playing in Mercedes-Benz Stadium come the first week of December.